Hello. I reckon near the end of the game now. Just wish I was that confident in myself. Yeah, whatever. He's like a neon temple guardian statue, this fellow. The way he's glaring at us so fiercely. Tell me, why are you standing guard here if the cabin is unoccupied? Because this area is only for first-class passengers. You must look out for suspicious criminals. He was looking straight at me when he said that. My dear fellow, as you can plainly see, we are quite unsuspicious as criminals go. But still criminals. No. Goodness sake, Sholmes, tell the man we're neither suspicious nor criminals. Oh, yes, quite right, Mikatoba. This seaman is far too able for his own good. Be extremely careful in what you say. One of us ought to be, yes. This must be a mousetrap, I think. Perhaps I could distract the crewman's attention with this somehow. No, I think not. That would never work, surely. Need to conduct another distraction. This would appear to be an alarm bell. All hell would break loose if that thing would ring. The whole crew would know about it. Here goes then. Pardon me in advance. You, what are you doing? If we were at sea, that would be a very bad problem. What's going on down there? Seaman Stroganoff, report at once. Sorry, sir. Nothing to report. It was just stupid trick. No, not by me. By world famous... No, as I told you. Now, Sholmes, now. Done. Not even 5 seconds, eh? Well, don't stand there gawping at my brilliance, Mikatoba. In we go! Oh, yes. Good gracious. It would appear that the occupant of this cabin did indeed disembark rather hurriedly. Those clothes on the floor there. They're Sashiro's, and that question. Well, it seems we were just a little too late. Yes, by about 2 hours. Still, whilst we're here, we should investigate thoroughly. There may well be 2 hours' worth of clues to find in here. But that burly crewman may return at any moment, Sholmes. Indeed he may, which makes this all the more thrilling. There's a speaking tube here, look. Now it's being stopped with some cloth. So the voices of the crewmen on the bridge aren't an annoyance, I suppose. Or indeed so that the voices in this cabin aren't heard elsewhere. Could something have happened in here that was for no one else's ears, do you think? Either that, or it could be to prevent snakes from entering. That's really becoming a favourite case of yours, hasn't it? Quite the exquisite glass, I must say. See here how it... Is something wrong, Sholmes? You suddenly trailed off. Ice, Mikatoba, ice. What opulence the first-class passengers enjoy. Chilled drinks. Pardon? Could it be that this steamship is equipped with an electrical... Electrically. Oh my god. Could it be that this steamship is equipped with an electrical refrigerated cauldron, do you think? Well, it is a luxury liner after all. They have enormous refrigerators for storing all sorts of lavish produce as well as ice. On our voyage from Japan, we enjoyed culinary delights from all over the world. Suddenly, Mikatoba, the sight of you is making my mouth water. I haven't taken on the flavour of the food I ate, you know. There's still ice there. This is the waste paper basket. Look, and there's still rubbish inside. Indeed. Then let us pry. I've discovered recently I have a penchant for exploring the contents of others' waste paper baskets. I sincerely hope only for your work. Huh? Here we have a notice issued to passengers from 3 days ago. 3 days ago? The night before we arrived in London then. And I was still aboard myself. Ah yes, there was an evacuation drill, I remember now. For our safety and security, all first-class passengers were constantly under the watchful eye of the crew. So it was a welcome relief to have some privacy for once. Okay. There's a substantial heap of clothes on the floor. An overcoat, shirts, a dressing gown, and a Mahiki work trousers, a Tanzan robe, a Haramaki waistband, clearly the clothing of a Japanese man. And clearly Japanese men are unaccustomed to the culture of the wardrobe. Looks to me as if they've been thrown in a heap like that in something of a hurry. Indeed, you could help yourself to a Japanese man's shirt, perhaps. I'm sure you made mention of packing too few. I'd very likely drown in one of Sashiro's shirts. No, I'll just buy any extras I need, I think. According to the report I was given, Naruhodo was concealing himself in Asogi's wardrobe. Indeed he was, and it was of a similar size to this one. Ah, you must climb inside yourself, my dear fellow. What? Whatever for? It was the suite of my first fateful meeting. It was the site of my first fatal meeting. There. It was the site of my first fateful meeting with Mr. Naruhodo. You can experience the moment for yourself now, complete with my dramatic rhetoric. Come along now, in you go. This will only take a moment. Really, Sholmes? Surely you can just tell me what you said. Well, I uttered some brilliant remark and opened the wardrobe to reveal the stowaway murderer. I think I'll just read about it in the Adventures of Herlock Sholmes. There are the rules of passage. Passengers must not keep weapons or other dangerous objects in their cabins. Pets are also strictly forbidden. Additionally, there are several punishments for stowing away in wardrobes and or travel cases. I feel the rules have increased since I last read them. Probably just my imagination. What about the fact that they're not straight on the wall? Doesn't that strike you? You may be right. Probably just your imagination, though. A trifle. And you know what I always say, Mikotoba? There is nothing important about trifles. It's probably just my imagination, but I think that might be slightly off. Plenty of reading material to keep passengers occupied on the long sea voyages. Found the mixture of classical literature and easy reading to be most satisfactory, I must say. Whoever stocked this bookcase was a hopeless heretic. There's no copy of The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, my dear fellows. I'm afraid it's just me, but no, you're quite right. More blasphemous than overlooking the Bible. I shall leave a copy behind. I just happen to have one on me. You're a true missionary of the Church of Great Detectives, aren't you? The wall is slightly different coloured, just here, do you see? Indeed. What you have observed arises when a flame that has been hanging for some time is removed. The frame, bleh, even. Perhaps your friend is an art thief. Now there's a bold deduction worthy of the great detective, I'm sure. He may very well be the elusive thief who has been plaguing France's galleries of late. Or perhaps we should focus our attentions elsewhere, Sholmes, don't you? That outline on the wall. I feel as though I might have spotted something of a similar shape and size elsewhere. All the doors on this vessel have locks, I believe. A wise idea. You never know where and when criminals may strike. But of course, to the great detective Sherlock Holmes, lock, bolt, or shirt button, it makes no difference. All are unfastened with equal ease. The way you go on, you sound rather more like a great thief than a great detective. My dear Mikotoba, as long as there is greatness, I'm quite satisfied. Of course you are. That's a very sizable trunk indeed. Sashiro is partial to all things large. And a rather clumsy fellow if he failed to notice he'd left that behind. Perhaps he left it on purpose. It's lighter than you might think, but still a hindrance to a speedy escape. Pity. It's locked, so we can't look inside. Surely 5 seconds from now the situation will be quite different though. Sadly not. It has a 7-digit combination lock. I'm not in a morose enough mood to work through all the combinations at present. You still here? Abel Seaman Stroganoff. Hello again. I was beginning to think you'd never materialize. Huh? You are waiting for me? Of course. I was expecting you to burst in with a hearty Russian profanity far sooner. I was in trouble with Captain because of trick you played before. Poor innocent chicken. It is all your fault. Ship is leaving port soon. Get off, now! Of course, we shall disembark presently, my dear fellow. But first, there is something that must be done. What are you talking about? Why, naturally, the debunking of your deceit and the barring of the truth. Koi? I'm afraid I see through your lies. For one thing, Mr. Jacobu has not yet left this vessel at all. Oh. And for another, my dear Seaman Stroganoff. You know exactly where the man is even as we speak, don't you? How can you? Good gracious, Sean. You mean you worked it out, all of it? It's really been too long, hasn't it, old friend? 10 years, no less. So would you care to join me for a dance of my immutable logic and reasoning? Nothing would please me more. What is this? We have but minutes until the vessel puts to sea. No games now. Time is of the essence. Mr. Stroganoff, allow me to remind you of your earlier claim. You told us that Jacobu left the ship sometime 2 hours ago. Ah, that is what I said. Certainly that was a rather clumsy lie. You see, there is something in this room that quite clearly contradicts it. What? Ah, yes, of course. I see you've noted it too, Mikotoba. Then please do take the lead. What in this cabin shows the impossibility of Jacobu having disembarked 2 hours ago? Let's see what the last 3 years have done to your observational skills then, Mikotoba. It's been 10 years since we last did this, Sholmes, not 3. Why, of course it has. Quite. Now, all the clues are here in this cabin for your eyes to see. But as I always say, you must not merely look, but observe. Observe and the answers become clear. So, impress me. I think I can manage that.
Take that!
Okay. That dance. Perhaps you should have cleared away that glass. How curious that the ice shouldn't have melted despite it being abandoned 2 hours ago. Ah. It would appear that the man he was here in this very cabin until moments before our arrival. Well, with this well-chilled glass in hand. Get your mind off the refreshment, Sholmes. One might even conclude that somebody informed him of our boarding. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Stroganoff? But why would Sashiro run from us? Before we consider that question, allow me to confirm one small matter. Would I be correct in saying that these first-class cabins on the SS Goose are the same ones in which you and Mr. Jacobu were accommodated on your voyage from Japan? That's right, they are. I was in the cabin next door and Shishiro was... yes. 50 days in this very cabin during our voyage. As I suspected, we'll see. There are traces in this cabin of a dark secret that Mr. Jacobu had to hide. What traces? I know nothing about this. Ah, this is news to you, is it, Mr. Stroganoff? Sholmes, what exactly are you getting at? As I said, there are traces in this cabin of some nefarious activity. Something that appears out of place, which I'm quite sure won't have escaped your notice. Something out of place in here? That's the key to this, Mikotoba. The remnants of the dark deed that took place in here are being masked by something quite incourageous. I must say I didn't foresee even doing this dance of deduction with you again, Mikotoba. No, quite. But life is full of unexpected twists and turns as well, you know. as we well know. Yeah. Now then, let's see if I can't uncover the truth here. Yes, you have the floor, my dear fellow.
Take that!
Yes, the rules of passage in this frame here. They're obviously out of place. The way they hang crooked on the wall, as if they were put there in a hurry. Yes, as I'm sure you've already concluded. That frame was originally over here. The shape and size are a perfect match.
Duh, you are right. When did frame move?
Hardly the most observant of crewmen, are you, Mr. Stroganoff? I would think your captain is quite justified in having his reservations about your reliability. Ugh. Dear, that really seemed to touch a nerve. So, Mikotoba, why don't you lift that frame off the wall? That looks like a bullet hole.
What? Who has been shooting walls?
I see. The projectile has been removed. Clearly, the careful occupant of this room has already disposed of it. Now then, Mr. Stroganoff. I have the distinct impression that you're attempting to shield said occupant.
I don't know what you're talking about. Why would I try to protect Eastern stranger?
So we're talking about the same man, I see. Good.
Ugh.
I'm sure we can get to the bottom of this in no time, aren't you? Because there's some very noteworthy evidence that explains the reason why you're lying for the man. Yes, you've been told to keep up this pretense as clearly as something. As clear as day, whatever. I really don't know how to approach this one, Sholmes. Ah, my dear Mikotoba, simply keep first principles in mind. Study your subject from every angle. But I'm quite sure that you'll see it. In fact, I'd put a wager on it. So I'm to glare at this fellow from all sides. Well, I can certainly do that.
Take that!
It's almost too obvious for words. Quite the universal language of the world. Money. I wager that the Eastern fellow in question. It's Ishiro Jikogu, yes?
Yeah.
So, I presume you realise what this means? There are clear signs that a criminal crime has been committed in this cabin. And the way you're going, sir, you'll find yourself accused of being an accomplice.
But
I believe you know, Mr. Stroganoff. You know where Mr. Jikogu is hiding at this precise moment in time. As always, Mikotoba, in a matter of deduction, the furtive glance is your unfaltering ally. Yes, I think you're onto something there, Sholmes. You found the chink in this burly fellow's armor. We need only follow the man's gaze to know where our prey is hiding. The slightest flicker of the pupils, a minutely delayed blink. Nothing escapes my attention, even that which is barely perceptible. You could hardly call this barely perceptible, Sholmes. The man's turned his entire head. It's not exactly what you describe as a furtive glance, is it? It's almost too obvious. We shall let your tapping toes decide, my dear fellow.
Take that!
You turned immediately to look at this large trunk, didn't you? The truth is, Ishiro Jikogu was unable to escape from the ship in time. and is, at this very moment, doing his best to stifle his breath inside this trunk. If he still has a breath to take, I fear he may be running dangerously low on air. I imagine he didn't count on us making a nuisance of ourselves for quite so long. I think it would be in everyone's best interest for us to open the trunk as quickly as possible. But how can we? Are you forgetting about the combination lock? We don't know the 7-digit code. The combination lock can't be opened from inside the trunk. Therefore, there must have been an arrangement for somebody to open it after our departure. Of course. In short, before Jikoku hid himself inside that trunk, he must have told somebody the 7-digit number for the lock. As I'm sure you can confirm, Mr. Stroganoff. No, I know nothing about combination code. Don't move a muscle, my good seaman. Now, Mikotoba, would you do the honors and open the trunk? What on earth do you expect me? It's a 7-digit number, remember? Quickly now, we have little time.
Take that!
Shows. That did it. It's open. You hacked the metal, didn't you? Well, Eugen, you found me now. The Shiro. I was really hoping beyond hope not to find you here, you know. But you're not entirely unsurprised, I take it. No, quite. I just wish it was some other way. Well, are you ever going to introduce me? Your reputation precedes you, Mr. Sholmes. I've read stories of many of your exploits. Excuse my manner, Sholmes. This is Mr. Jikoku, my old friend and travelling companion. The devil is in the details, Mikotoba. I believe you meant to say your old friend and travelling companion. Who made the cowardly decision to flee the country without a word to anyone when things turned sour. I see my reputation precedes me as well. What an honour. Well, Sashiro, are you going to explain all this? You know it all by now, I imagine. What you don't know, of course, is that 3 days ago, on the night before our arrival in Britain, an attempt was made on my life here on this very ship. By the Reaper of the Bailey. Yes, I've since heard. Because you were once prosecuted by the Reaper, weren't you? 10 years ago now, mind you. And I had no idea at the time what a dangerous individual he was. Anyway, when we arrived in London to find the symposium was postponed until goodness knows when, it became all too apparent to me that I might very well be targeted again. So you decided to flee the capital without saying a word to me about it? I'm afraid so, yes. Of course, I realize now that I really ought to have confided in you. Somewhat surprising, I must say. What is? Well, first-class cabins aboard luxury steamships are in very short supply. It's more than a little hard to believe that this one just happened to be available. So says the protagonist of some colourful short stories. Well, I don't care for your opinion. The cabin did just happen to be available, so I purchased a ticket, and here I am. I've just seen for myself the obvious remnants of that incident in this cabin. So you'd already purchased your return ticket before we even docked in Dover, had you? Ever been anyone else taking this cabin and seeing the evidence? Is that it? Eugene, I have nothing to say to you. Well, in a mere 5 minutes, this ship will set off on its onward voyage, and not make port again until Italy. I'm afraid we must insist that you disembark with us at once. You have no jurisdiction over my movements. We have this, Ishiro. Take it. What is it? It's a subpoena from the Old Bailey. You're a man of the law. You know what the ramifications of ignoring a document like this from the British courts would be. You came prepared then, Eugene. Come on, let's go. One moment. What is it, Sholmes? Inside Mr. Jakogu's trunk, I found this rather fascinating trinket. What is that, Sashiro? I can't help you, I'm afraid. Some small component from something. But what? I have no idea. By the look on his face, I think he generally doesn't know. Well, let us pocket it as a souvenir of our brief sojourn in France. Well, young Naruto, I think we've done as much as we can, I'm afraid. The rest will be on your shoulders, on the shoulders of you and your assistant. Probably should have done that yesterday. Kazuma Sogi. I know you, and I know you wouldn't lie, but still, there's no doubt that you're holding something back. You know more than you're saying. During the past 30 minutes while the court was adjourned, all possible efforts were expended. But sadly, Mr. Jakogu's whereabouts could not be ascertained. We must accept the unfortunate conclusion that the Reaper has already done the deed. There's no sense in wasting any more of the court's time. The prosecution calls for an immediate verdict.
Objection!
No, the trial cannot end now. You're a Japanese man, Ryunosuke. You should know when to lay down your sword. You should know never to presume when the battle is won. The court has already been presented with all the evidence and heard all relevant testimony. And there can only be one conclusion, that the accused is guilty. All relevant testimony? Far from it. There's still a crucial witness, from whom the court is yet to hear a single word of testimony. In that case, call your witness to the stand at once, counsel. Yes, my lord. Tomorrow, if possible.
The witness is already on his way and scheduled to arrive tomorrow.
Who on earth is this crucial witness? Saishiro Jikogu. The very man allegedly murdered by the Reaper. Judge Jikogu? You found him? But the investigations of every policing resource in the capital suggest that Jikogu is already dead. How in the name of God did you find the man?
He was located in France during the recess, at the port of Dunkirk. Thanks to one of Mr. Herlock Sholmes' famous deductions.
Herlock Sholmes.
Inspector Gregson almost certainly met with Mr. Jikogu on the night of his death, because along with Prosecutor Asogi, Gregson was on a mission to assassinate the man. Which means that Saishiro Jikogu is the sole witness who can clarify exactly what happened aboard the SS Grus on the 31st of October.
Well, it would appear that it's too soon to move to adjudication at this point. The prosecution concurs. The court must hear Mr. Jikogu's testimony. No judgment shall be passed until all testimony has been considered. In that case, I hereby call the end of today's proceedings. Court will reconvene at the same hour tomorrow. No objections from either side.
No, my lord.
No objections, my lord.
We live to fight another day, by the skin of our teeth.
Yeah, I should have done that all yesterday. Oh well.
The unexpected halt of proceedings sent a clamour around the courtroom. And outside the Bailey, where Londoners knew nothing of the secret trial within, it was a typical still night. Then, at a little past 8 o'clock that evening, Mr. Sholmes and his partner returned to Baker Street.
We have returned, my dear. We have returned, my dear fellows.
Welcome back to Britain. Thank you for your timely help.
Think nothing of it. I believe you've had an even more wearing day than Mikotoba and I know.
You could say that. You were on the brink of defeat in court earlier.
So, this prosecutor Asogi had you on the ropes, did he? And he's your best friend, you say?
Well, it's not really the man I knew in Japan anymore. Kazuma has changed. Oh, Mr. Naruhodo.
I mean, it's incredible.
I think that he'd even entertain the idea of acting as the Reaper's assassin.
Well, nevertheless, you must introduce me. After all, I've only ever met the young man as a corpse.
When all this started, almost a year ago now. Mr. Sholmes still hasn't told us the truth about what really happened back then. But the motivation for what he himself described as a great detective's lie.
Now then, I must say, it's really quite a journey all the way to France.
Well, it is another country, Mr. Sholmes. So, what news of Judge Jikogu?
We took him to Scotland Yard. The investigating detectives there have a lot of questions for the man.
Oh, Professor Mikatoba, this must be quite a shock for him.
Ah yes, I picked this up at the telegraph office on our way home.
What is it?
Surely you haven't forgotten already. I put upon you for the matter only yesterday. You put upon me, Sholmes. I had to fill out your telegram to Japan and foot the bill as well.
Oh, you had a reply already?
What was so urgent then, Mr. Sholmes? Such matters can wait until later. I'm far too hungry for an involved conversation at present.
Oh, that's good news, because supper is ready, everyone.
And what a feast it is! If I were none the wiser, I'd think the trial was well won already. Roast beef, kippers, stew, steak and kidney pie, Yorkshire pudding.
Tomorrow could be a very long day, so eat up.
In that case, I think I'll seat myself just here. This place appears to be the only one set with a helping of pheasant as well.
Oh, sorry, Hurley, not there.
Why ever not? Oh, are we in set places this evening?
Yes, and that place is for Susie's study.
For me?
That's right, I made it especially for you, Professor Mickey.
I see. Well, that's terribly kind of you.
It's a shame, really.
What do you mean?
Well, for a brief moment I believed it. That Susie and I were half-sisters, I mean. Oh. Iris, do you mean... Yes, I know now. I overheard yesterday. I secretly listened in to the conversation you had after I tricked you all into thinking I'd left.
What? Misunderstanding arose because of that autopsy report from 10 years ago. But actually, it turned out that neither Dr. Wilson nor Professor Mikatoba are Iris's father. Yeah. Yes, about that, Iris. You know,
I know, you can't tell me at the moment. Oh, Iris. The pheasant is by way of an apology. I'm sorry for eavesdropping.
Oh, no, that's quite alright. Why don't I get an apologetic pheasant? So just who is Iris's father? Suppose that's not something we'll be finding out today. So then, let us dine while our largely pheasantless plates are still piping hot. Fine idea, Sholmes. It all looks absolutely delicious.
Eat as much as you like. There are always seconds.
This could be our last chance to ask questions before tomorrow's trial. About that telegram from Japan and about Kazuma. Can't let this opportunity slip away. Mr. Sholmes, what are you doing? Surely it's abundantly clear that I wasn't brooding over Mikatoba's refusal to share his pheasant with me. Nevertheless, I felt the need to withdraw from the social circle for a while and look on with hungry eyes.
Sorry, Hurley, but I cooked that pheasant especially for Susie's daddy.
Even though I played the role of a father to you for far longer.
Mr. Sholmes? Could I discuss some things with you?
Certainly, my dear fellow. I find myself quite in the mood for a spell of conversation. No doubt, you're hungry to learn more of my deep love of the game.
Love of game, blech. I can probably contain my curiosity on that one.
You needn't look at me in that fashion.
In what fashion?
It seems that before we discuss the pheasant, we have some rather unpheasant matters to discuss.
So, what was in the telegram you received back from Japan then?
This. I think my lucky stars had arrived in time. Record found as indicated. Duplicate follows. K. Asogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson.
What? Those 4 names? We've come across that exact same list before. They came up in that unforgettable case last spring. Appeared to be a simple case of aggravated murder turned out to be masking monumental intrigue. Plot that involved the sale of British governmental secrets to foreign states. Exposing the means by which those secrets were being leaked, they deciphered a fragment of a message. K. Asogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson. But we didn't find the names out until the case was over. We never did get to the bottom of what they meant. All we knew was that the information had been sent by somebody in the British government to somebody in Japan. So, why are the names coming up again now?
Yes. Where did the sender of your telegram discover them, Mr. Sholmes?
May I have here the message I had wired yesterday? Allow me to read it to you. Enter Judge Jacobu's office undetected and investigate telegram records. Expect to find communications from Britain dated 1 year ago. List of 4 names. Need by tomorrow. Naruhodo. I sent it to a detective I know who specializes in clandestine missions of this nature.
You asked Inspector Osanaga to undertake such an onerous task for you.
And in my name. I wonder what guise he opted for this time.
My dear fellows, it was a matter of great urgency, you understand. Anyway, the list of names was found in Shashiro's office as Holmes predicted.
So, you mean that mysterious collections of names that were sent from Britain to Japan was...
It was sent to Judge Jikoku. He was the intended recipient.
Don't believe it.
But that doesn't answer the question of what the list of names actually signifies.
I did formulate a hypothesis about that. But without a shred of evidence, I couldn't possibly have shared it.
Mr. Sholmes looks deadly serious for once. That tragedy we had to go through on the SS Pariah. It was all for nothing. Kazuma wasn't dead at all. Completely taken in by the lie you told us. Your great detective's lie.
I took no pleasure in deceiving you. However, at the time,
All that concerned me was preventing the young man's study tour from taking place, whatever the cost. What? I capitalized on the events that transpired to see that he was sent back to Japan.
His remains, you mean?
Precisely, Mr. Sato. And then I made sure that somebody else was sent to Britain in his stead.
Oh my, you mean...
The arrangement between our two countries was already in place. One university student lawyer and one judicial assistant to be accommodated on a study tour. In other words, by arranging for someone else to fill the place originally intended for Mr. Asogi, I would successfully prevent the man from arriving on our shores for several years at least. Wait, do you mean to say that it was all in aid of stopping Kazuma coming to Britain? That's why you... Think back, Mr. Naruhodo. Was there not somebody who quite casually urged you to continue on the voyage to England? The terms of this study tour were negotiated by the Department of Justice in both Great Britain and Japan. In light of Mr. Asogi's unfortunate death, I'm afraid the study tour can no longer go ahead. My dear fellows, the majority of problems have an extremely simple solution, you know. All you require is one lawyer, and the study tour can continue, surely.
There is no one else with the necessary qualifications, Mr. Jones. We know of no other lawyer.
The voyage to London still promises a good month of time. Ample opportunity, I would say, to find yourself another suitable lawyer. So, you manipulated me? I've often remarked on the extraordinary lengths to which friendship will drive a man. I was quite sure that you would rise to the challenge for your late friend. Don't believe it.
That if it was all contrived... I mean, what happened was treated by the authorities as murder. A woman was mistakenly arrested as the perpetrator. What do you suppose became of her?
Naturally, I didn't allow the misapprehension to have any serious repercussions. I subsequently explained everything and assisted the unfortunate soul in finding the foreign refuge she sought.
I seem to remember Mr. Sato and I had some rather strong words for her.
Well, she was certainly not devoid of all guilt. She deserved every word, I'm sure.
But she made it to America then.
I'm afraid I simply cannot comprehend it. Why would you go to such lengths, Mr. Sholmes? Why were you so determined to stop Kazuma-sama from reaching Britain?
The truth is, 12 months ago, there was already a very tangible omen of impending tragedy, you see.
Oh?
An omen that, at this very moment in time, is close at hand.
An omen of all these tragic events that already existed a year ago is close at hand? We need to find out exactly what Mr. Sholmes knows. You see these little things all over the place, don't you? It's part of the top of a pocket watch that you twist to set the time, isn't it?
It's called the crown, I believe. A watch would be quite useless without one.
Crown, like what sits on top of a monarch's head. It's a very grand name for such a tiny part.
But actually... Yes, Mr. Naruhodo?
This is a crown. I have a feeling I might have seen a monarch around here somewhere with a very bare head.
If by monarch you mean pocket watch, then I'm quite sure you have.
There's no room for doubt with your instructions in this telegram, Mr. Sholmes. You're very clear that it was Judge Jacobu's office that should be searched, so... You obviously knew that's where the list of names would be found.
K. Asogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson.
But we only learnt of those 4 names just over 6 months ago now. And only because they appeared as part of a top-secret government communications that were leaked.
That's true, yes. But at the time you were unaware of the background. You see, those 4 names were wired to Japan. Around 6 months before that, approximately this time last year in fact, when you were both still in Japan. It really would be hypocrisy on my part to reprove others for intercepting state secrets. Because after all, I'm perpetually eavesdropping on communications between the British and Japanese governments. You're perpetually doing what? How? Never mind the details, but you should know. No secret is safe from Sherlock Holmes when he has designs on knowing it.
Oh my, Mr. Sholmes, what a fabulous line.
Now, 1 month after that list of 4 names was wired to the recipient Jacobu in Japan, Dr. John H. Wilson was murdered. As soon as I learned of the incident, a hypothesis rapidly took shape in my mind. As it turned out, I was partially correct, and partially mistaken. Nevertheless, it was the beginning of all the tragic events that were to follow.
Mr. Sholmes, please, tell us all you know. Tell us about these 4 names and the tragedy to which they are all somehow connected.
As I said, when I learnt of Dr. Wilson's murder in Japan, my mind immediately turned to those 4 names, because you see, there was someone else on the list who I believe to be recently deceased. What? Who? A. Shin, as it was transcribed in Japanese script. In actual fact, Miss Asa Shin. That was a familiar name to me. She was a professional killer, well known among London's unsavory classes.
Oh, I see.
But she had completely vanished from existence several months before Wilson's murder. So I came to the logical conclusion that she had herself been killed, and accordingly I became fearful for the lives of the remaining 2 persons on the list.
K. Asogi and T. Gregson.
Owing to our proximity, I decided to take measures to protect Gregson myself. But I determined it would be safest if young Asogi were to stay away from Britain.
So that's why you went to such lengths to prevent his study tour from going ahead.
Exactly.
So, you already knew who Kazuma-sama was, Mr. Sholmes.
Oh yes, Sholmes and I have been exchanging correspondence for years. I recounted many tales about Asogi to him in my letters, and the news of Dr. Wilson's death, of course.
So, Dr. Wilson is dead then? I didn't know.
Oh, Iris.
I knew he wasn't my daddy, but still, that's very sad. I'm so sorry, Iris. We knew the significance of the name, obviously, but We just couldn't bring ourselves to tell you. No,
But what you just told us, Mr. Sholmes, doesn't completely tie in with the facts. There's one big hole in your hypothesis.
big hole, Mr. Naruto?
Yes. You mean about Asashin, I presume.
Oh, of course.
Exactly. She wasn't killed, was she? She was in Japan posing as a visiting student with the assumed name of Jezal Brett. I'm glad you're keeping up, my dear fellow. But I only became aware of that fact 2 days ago in the foyer of the Great Waterloo Hotel. And upon hearing that startling revelation, the hypothesis that I'd formed surrounding these 4 names was completely turned topsy. What? Topsy? What do you mean when you say your hypothesis was turned topsy, Mr. Sholmes? I had believed all 4 names on the list to be the names of victims. However, I was mistaken. Very much so. Asashin was a killer. So this telegram is a list of both victims and killers, is it? Indeed, and it would seem that Miss Shin was dispatched from Britain with the sole intention of dispatching Dr. Wilson. Her visiting student status being merely a front.
Which would of course explain why no motive could be determined for her actions.
So the real reason Dr. Wilson was killed by Asashin, because he was the target of an assassination. And forearmed with that knowledge, fresh consideration of this telegram puts the list in a very different perspective. What do you mean? Well, does it not strike you there is another among the 4 who subsequently became a visiting student? Wait, you mean... But of course, a name you know only too well. You mean Kazuma?
Oh,
You did say in court earlier today. Yes, on 31st of October I accompanied Inspector Gregson to Dunkirk in order to carry out a mission. And the mission was the assassination of the Mark. Young Mr. Asogi accepted that mission a year ago now.
surely not.
In conclusion, this document is a contract of sorts. An international agreement, one might say, detailing an assassin exchange.
An assassin exchange? How could Kazuma possibly have got involved in something like that?
Let's assume that we have 2 parties, each wishing to dispose of a distinct individual. Those 2 parties then make a contract to swap their respective assassination targets. That would then be an assassin exchange.
So, to begin with, the British assassin is dispatched as a visiting student to Japan, where she kills her target. And then, the Japanese assassin is dispatched as a visiting student to Britain in order to eliminate his target. It certainly does sound like an exchange.
But what on earth is the point? Don't forget, Naruhodo, that the British assassin at least escaped conviction. Thanks to diplomatic immunity afforded by consular jurisdiction.
Oh yes.
Such jurisdiction should be null and void under the terms of the new treaty between our 2 countries. So the fact that it was brought into play suggests intervention at the very highest levels.
Highest levels?
These murders were two sides of the same coin, linked not by a common motive, but by a contractual agreement. As such, they appeared utterly unrelated, yet in truth, the assassins were complicit in one singular devilish scheme. That disassociation and the safeguard of diplomatic immunity were, I believe, the motivation behind this plot. But wait a minute, Sholmes. This telegram really is describing the exchange of assassins as you're suggesting. It would mean that the Japanese killer's target was never Sashiro Jikoku at all. It would mean Asobi's target was actually Inspector Gregson.
What? Kazuma was here for Gregson? So Judge Jikoku wasn't actually the mark?
Yes, that's exactly what it would mean.
I hold myself personally responsible for failing to keep the inspector safe.
Mr. Sholmes.
I told him of my fears and implored him to seek a transfer to an overseas position. Obviously, with the young pickpocket in tow.
Yes, Gina. Come to think of it, Inspector Gregson did mention that to us at the Great Exhibition. That he'd be transferring to the Paris police and taking Gina with him.
But without informing me, he engaged in one last assignment, it seems. And sadly, it turned out to be his very last.
This is too much to take in.
Alright everyone, that's quite enough of all that serious talk for one day. Isn't it, Hurley? I mean, look at the time.
Ah, quite right, Iris. We must conclude our preparations for tomorrow.
What preparations?
Well, I think I shall make my way back to my hotel room now. This has certainly been a night to remember.
It is a little bit sad though. I mean, I like the idea of you being my daddy. Because then Susie would be my big sister.
I'm sorry, Iris.
I know, Iris. I was thinking quite the same thing. Were you? But if somebody like me would be worthy, I would be delighted to become your sister. What? Really? Oh yes, without question. So, you'll teach me all the ways you know to throw Yuno to the floor? Yes, yes, of course. It would be my pleasure.
You didn't have to agree quite so readily.
Oh, but wait a minute. If Susie's going to be my big sister, you could be my big brother if you want, Runo.
Huh? I mean, yes, of course, if you'll have me, I'll gladly be your brother. Well done, Iris. We must always be mindful of feelings. I raised you so well.
As being sensitive is your strong suit, naturally.
Alright, I'm going to work extra hard for tomorrow now, because it's for my big brother and sister.
What's all this talk about preparing for tomorrow? Preparing what?
You'll just have to wait and see.
Oh,
Good luck in court tomorrow. I'm expecting a sterling performance.
I'll do my very best, of course. So, the overnight break in the trial's proceedings became a crucial turning point. Exposing new truths while posing the new conundrums. That list of 4 names on the telegram in Judge Chikoku's office. The extraordinary assassination plot in which my best friend had somehow become involved.
felt as though I had been plunged into an even greater darkness all of a sudden. At the same time, I felt sure I would see the light again soon. Because I was lucky enough to have the most wonderful family in the world standing steadfastly behind me. Yeah. I probably should have known this yesterday. Oh well. Too late now. Today is Saturday, yeah. Which means normally I should do Rogue Legacy 2 tomorrow. But I won't. I'll keep doing this in the morning until I finish it, since I'm only like 2 parts away from the end of the games. Shouldn't really freaking matter. May as well get it out of the way. But I will stop here for now, and I'll be back in about an hour with Xenoblade, as per usual. For immediately now, though, bye!